This episode is sponsored by Manta Sleep. Manta Sleep makes sleep masks and sleep accessories that help you get the energy to create your best life. Head to the link in our description to get 10% off. The octopus is a pretty odd animal under even the most ordinary circumstances, or ordinary by octopus standards at least. They're squishy and smart, they can change color, and they can even carry around their own hiding places. As beasts go, they're pretty bizarre. So, when folks start calling out one type of octopus as the strangest, there's probably something special about it. And the Argonaut, also known as the paper nautilus, lives up to the hype. It's an octopus that lives in the open ocean, has a shell, and the difference in size between males and females is so extreme that males probably weren't even recognized for over 2,000 years. The Bizarre Beast Pin Club is open for subscriptions for the whole month. Sign up by February 20th, and the first pin you'll get will be this beautiful Argonaut. Argonauts are any of the 4 extant species in the genus Argonauta. They live in the warm waters of oceans all around the world, eating small crustaceans and various planktonic animals, and the females can grow up to 47.5 centimeters long. Argonauts are the only known type of octopus that is pelagic, which means that they live in the open ocean rather than on the seafloor. They're also the only type of octopus that makes an external shell, though their shell isn't quite like that of other mollusks. More on that in a minute. Because the curious thing about modern cephalopods is that they all evolved from bottom-dwelling mollusks with shells. And around 276 million years ago, give or take 75 million years, the species that lost their shells gained a competitive advantage with their more agile forms. But this means that when the octopus ancestors of the Argonauts left the seafloor on their voyage into the ecological niche of the open ocean, they did so without shells. Thanks to some wild claims made by Aristotle, people used to think that Argonauts literally voyaged across the sea, riding the waves using specialized arms as sails and their shell like a ship. Hence the name Argonaut, after the mythical crew of the ancient Greek ship Argo. But Aristotle was very wrong. And the Argonaut's other name is wrong too. It's not a nautilus, and its shell is not paper. As an octopus, it's only distantly related to the chambered nautilus, despite the superficial similarities when they're swimming around. Their shell is made mainly of calcite, unlike the true shells of nautiluses, which are made mostly of a different form of calcium carbonate called aragonite. And rather than secreting the shell from its mantle or sac-like body, like a nautilus or any other mollusk with a shell, the Argonaut secretes it out of glands at the ends of specialized flattened arms. The very arms that Aristotle thought were used as sails. Because its shell doesn't come from its mantle, the Argonaut isn't actually physically attached to it, but instead just holds onto it tightly. This means that it can theoretically enter and exit its shell as it pleases, unlike any other shelled mollusk. And due to these differences in both composition and construction method, scientists sometimes consider the Argonaut's handiwork to be an egg case, rather than a true shell. This makes evolutionary sense too. Argonauts are the descendants of cephalopods that no longer had shells, while the ancestors of nautiluses took the pelagic plunge much earlier, about 416 million years ago, so they never lost their true shells. Nowadays, nautilus shells contain fancy gas chambers that keep them buoyant. Argonauts, meanwhile, convergently evolved their hard casings and had to reverse engineer their own buoyancy method. They swim up to the ocean surface and flip over, deliberately capturing a bubble of air inside their shell to make themselves neutrally buoyant in the water column. Scientists in the 1800s used to think that Argonauts just found their shells, like hermit crabs. And to be fair, some other species of octopus do exactly that. To be unfair, those other octopuses weren't observed doing so until 2009, so those scientists wouldn't have known that was an option. And that explanation never sat right with 19th century French naturalist Jeanne Villepreux-Power. She was a pioneering marine biologist who wasn't satisfied with the conclusions her colleagues were making at the time, based only on empty shells they found. She wanted to actually study the living organisms themselves. After watching Argonauts for hours and hours in custom water cages anchored just offshore, she finally got the idea to strategically damage the shells and then observe what the Argonauts did next. She poked holes in the shells, then watched all day until, right before her eyes, one of the Argonauts used its two front arms to secrete repairs to its own shell. Through her careful experiments, Villepreux-Power successfully demonstrated that Argonauts make their own shells, and that they use those shells to protect their eggs in the open ocean. Her work making Argonauts more easily observable also led to some major innovations towards the modern idea of an aquarium, which is a pretty cool bonus. But as it turns out, only female Argonauts make shells, and the size difference between the sexes in this genus is so great that scientists originally didn't realize they were only ever finding females of the species. So, what's that about? Well, after making her shell discoveries, Villepreux-Power decided to next try and learn more about the weird parasite she was finding in most of the females' eggs. Georges Cuvier had recently dubbed this worm Hectocotylus octopuses, but that was about all he offered by way of explanation. Villepreux-Power wanted to know more about what their whole deal was, and she soon realized that A, they looked more like an octopus arm than a worm, and B, they always contained sperm. So she hypothesized that maybe they were actually male Argonauts. Various scientists went to work trying to find free-living males, but were unsuccessful. The problem, it turned out, was that what they were looking for wasn't actually the entire male. The worm-like specimens in question lacked some important features you might expect to find in a whole animal, like eyes or butts. The mystery was solved when scientists instead found tiny octopuses with one really long arm. They discovered that Argonaut males, only a centimeter or two in size and without a shell, have one specialized arm for delivering sperm to females. And the term Hectocotylus, although it no longer applied as a separate parasitic species, became the name for this arm. Mating consists of the male amputating and donating the entire Hectocotylus to the female. And this would prove true for more than just Argonauts. Mating via Hectocotylus can be seen in a wide array of not just other octopus species, but cuttlefish and squid as well. But it stands to reason that 19th century scientists might not have thought to keep an eye out for such a strange mating strategy, so they get a pass for not catching this right away. And likewise, they had no reason to expect that the Argonaut sexes would differ in size so much more than other octopus species. In some cases, female Argonauts can be 8 times larger and 600 times heavier than males. Somehow, the true story of the Argonaut managed to out-weird even our original idea of them cruising around the ocean in their own little sailboats. So Argonauts do seem to live up to the weirdest octopus title in multiple ways. But a lot of their bizarreness came initially from humans just completely misunderstanding them. Luckily, after lots of direct observation and experimentation, scientists were eventually able to make this one species a little less mysterious. And what they learned from the oddest aspects of the Argonaut even made other octopuses less bizarre. Signing up for the Pin Club at bizarrebeshow.com helps keep this channel going. If you want an Argonaut to be your first pin, sign up by February 20th. We've got some amazing artists lined up for the rest of the year, so don't miss out. And now for some bonus facts. Octopuses and many of their relatives camouflaging themselves is pretty standard cephalopod behavior. They often do this by appearing translucent or by what's called cryptic coloration, literally making themselves blend into their surroundings. There are several different kinds of tissues found within their skin that they use for this, including chromatophores and iridophores. Chromatophores contain sacs of pigment that can expand and contract, while iridophores reflect light. And being able to blend in is especially important for Argonauts because they live in the open ocean rather than on the seafloor. They don't have the same variety of surfaces to camouflage themselves against. And how they do this is just as weird as the rest of their features. They basically wrap their first arm around their shell and use iridescent tissues to make it look like a mirror. Argonauts also do some less standard octopus behaviors. Like sometimes a group of females will stick to each other's shells, forming a little swimming unit. Researchers aren't sure sure why they do this, but it might let them share the effort of swimming across the group. It might also make them easier for males to find. Our planet's oceans are huge, and they're even bigger when you're only a centimeter or two long. So Argonaut males looking for a mate need all the help they can get. But of course, this comes with the downside that clustering together also makes you easier for hungry fish and other predators to find. So you win some, you lose some, I guess. Unlike Argonauts, we humans don't have the luxury of retreating into a shell when we feel like escaping the stresses of everyday life and finding peace in a chaotic world. For that, we need a little extra help. Enter Mantis Sleep. Mantis Sleep makes the world's best sleep masks and functional sleep accessories, fueled by their belief that it's impossible to unlock your full potential if you're not getting an afternoon nap every day. Take their Mantis Sleep Mask Pro, for example, a 100% blackout mask engineered for maximum adjustability and comfort thanks to the premium feel of its materials. Visit the Mantis Sleep website at mantisleep.com and use code BizarreBeasts or click the link in our description for 10% off your order.